Well, well, well. On the heels of Night of Champions 2023 live from Saudi Arabia, it looks like we have the first shots fired in a Bloodline civil war. A lot of people, including myself, believed that it was going to be Jey Uso who turned on Roman Reigns. The way that everything had turned out after Clash of the Champions and Hell in a Cell 2020 during the pandemic and the beginning of the pandemic, and becoming a servant of Roman Reigns, it feels as if Jey would be the one to turn on him. That Jey would be the one to finally stand up for himself and be sick of the mental abuse and manipulation from the narcissistic mega heel known as the WWE Universal Champion, the Tribal Chief and the head of the table, and Big Daddy Roman Reigns. However, WWE pulled a 180 on us last night and made it be Jimmy who finally stood up to his bully and family member in Roman Reigns. I feel as if this was done to kind of put our head on a swivel, because as the story has been unfolding and the family has been slowly unraveling with the cracks that have formed in the foundation of the strong faction, it seems as if it was all but set in stone that it was going to be Jey who finally stood up to the man who's been abusing him and beating him down mentally and physically. But it wasn't. And that's why we love pro wrestling. It wasn't Jey. It was Jimmy. And if you look back to Hell in a Cell 2020, when Jey Uso faced off against Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship inside a Hell in a Cell in an I Quit match, the only reason that Jey Uso said I quit was so he could save Jimmy Uso from the grip of Roman Reigns in a vicious guillotine choke. He did it to save his brother. He said I quit and sacrificed his manhood in order to save a family member from being seriously injured. Sometimes you have to put that pride and ego aside to do what is truly right. And that's what Jey did. This was Jimmy returning the favor. He could no longer stand aside and see Jey be verbally, mentally, and physically broken down and abused as a man anymore. Imagine if it was your family member getting treated like that. You would do anything you possibly could, and you may stand by the sidelines for a little bit, but eventually it would be too much. And along with the abuse he saw his brother go through, he had to deal with it as well under the manipulation and narcissism of the Tribal Chief and Champion in Roman Reigns. And he just couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't see Jey stand by and get beat down and talked down to and broken down anymore. And that's why we got the super kick heard around the world. After an accidental double super kick that was meant for Sami Zayn clocked Solo Sikoa in the chin, Roman blew a gasket and he pushed Jey in the face. He pushed him away, he talked down to him, and then he moved his attention to Jimmy. But before he could make clear, conscious decisions about what he was going to say and do to Jimmy Uso, he was hit with a super kick. And the look of terror, concern, and disbelief on the face of Jey Uso tells you just how much this abuse has affected him as a man. Jimmy would turn to Jey as the rage-fueled attacks spewed out of his veins. And he said, "I am your family. I would never treat you like this." But he did. "I am your family. I am your brother. He is nothing." All Jey could do is stand there in disbelief with his hands on his head and his mouth gaped open, not really being able to think clearly, but that's something he hasn't been able to do since becoming the servant of Roman Reigns and starting this faction. Now, Solo Sikoa is a different story, but at the end of the day, as Roman was down on his knees, Jimmy would hit him with another super kick and take him out. This was all while the match was still going on, but after a haluva kick and a stunner from Owens and Zayn, Solo Sikoa would be pinned in the middle of the ring, and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would retain their WWE Tag Team Championships. The plan of Sami Zayn is finally coming to fruition. He wanted to break the family apart from the inside out. But more than that, he wanted to make Jey Uso see clearly, because in being the honorary Uso, he felt like Jey was true family. And Jimmy was on Sami's side the entire time, but it took Jey a little bit to come around until they eventually turned on Sami. But what if it wasn't about Jey? What if it wasn't about Jimmy? What if Sami's entire operation was to take down the tribal chief and crumble his kingdom and have him give up his crown in due time. Now, Solo Sikoa is still on the side of Roman Reigns, so it seems as if we're going to get a true family civil war between the Bloodline. And that at Money in the Bank, we could potentially be looking at an Usos with Jimmy and Jay versus Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa match, which could eventually lead to one or both of the Usos challenging Roman Reigns for the titles come SummerSlam. I've always said that I feel like if it wasn't going to be Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso was the correct person to take the Universal title off of Roman Reigns. But at this point, with how the story is unfolding, I wouldn't mind if it was Jimmy, because Jimmy's never had a crack at the title, but Jey has, and he failed. So maybe it's going to be Jimmy who takes the titles off of his brother, or former brother, in Roman Reigns. But the seeds of doubt have been planted for a very long time, and it seems as if the plants are now growing through the cracks in this familial foundation of the Bloodline, in having Jimmy and Jey grow as men and as competitors and break away from their abusive counterpart in Roman Reigns and be their own man, for the case of both Jimmy and Jey. And whether it's Jey who takes the title off Roman or Jimmy, it seems as if the title may stay in the family, but the tribal chief will no longer be the head of the table, because he is not going to be the one when it's all said and done. Jimmy and Jey are the ones, as they say, we the ones, and it should be one of them who takes the title from a former brother and earns the respect that they've all been dying to get since the start of this faction.